Okay, here's the topic. Okay, Jennifer Flowers was in town promoting her new book, and I was at Rosedale, and so I went and got an autographed copy of her book. All right.
Did you get her number, Tom?
She autographed. She said, "To Tom, my best, Jennifer Flowers," on the inside cover. Yeah.
I heard she wrote that in Bill's book too.
I think that people joke about her. I think she's been marginalized in our society. She's been made to look like a bimbo, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's respectful to her as a person. Our special guest is Brennan Foley. Here's the brochure from the Foundation to Reclaim American Values, and it has a lot of symbols, and we were talking about some of these before the show. Symbols for Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. And I was wondering, what are these three last ones here, Brennan?
Well, the star is animism, and well, the star underneath that is paganism, and then the infinity symbol is for science. When they talk about traditional family values, one has to wonder whose tradition, whose family, and whose values. And now people are working against being wage slaves in a consumer society. Progressive is a very good term, but in the public perception, liberal is what's usually associated with the Democratic Party, and conservative with the Republican Party. And there really isn't a term that one can substitute for liberal if one wants to go back to the historical roots.
Where do you see society going in the 21st century?
Increasingly, we're able to create our own realities. Soon we may be able to practice genetic engineering. The whole ability for us to increasingly design our workplace, our lives, maybe even our bodies, is too important of a future to leave to a conservative interpretation of history, because one has to ask the question then, will this technology be used to liberate the lives and minds and work time of the people, or will it be used to merely create more of a kind of a post-industrial sweatshop?
Bob Lassard, if you're listening, you are the Green Weenie.
A bunch of toxic mounds of dirt that were radioactive, and only got the initiative to clean that up when citizens started complaining and made us think about them.
Speaking of representatives, some of the other people that were nominated for the worst environmentalist were Steve Novak, Leroy Stumpf, Lauren Jennings, and House Speaker Irv Anderson.
Jennifer Flowers wasn't on that list.
Richard Laybourne, an animal rights activist.
Maybe I should just say, if I may, how I got started on this whole issue. I was walking in the woods behind my townhouse in Burnsville with my dog, and suddenly I heard a yipe, and I turned around, and this is what happened. My dog got caught in that leg hole trap, and I got involved in all of the other issues with animals, companion animals, farm animals, wildlife in this case, animals used for entertainment, and animals used in the laboratories. Maybe in this case it would be good with a quote from Gandhi, who says, "The greatness and moral progress of a nation can best be determined how its animals are treated." You don't need the protein. Protein you can get from other products, certainly not protein.
I accept that you can get them from other places. I don't know if that's equal to saying that they're not good for you.
Well, see, they cause, I say they have the saturated fat, they cause the cholesterol, they have all these additives in them that the agribusiness primarily is promoting.
So what if you buy free-roam chicken from the co-op?
Free-roam chicken...
It has no additives. It is basically eating organic.
Not just that, no. It's the saturated fat. And by the way, there are a lot of other aspects to it that are detrimental to the environment. For instance, the tremendous amount of water that is used in order to feed the grain that feeds the cattle. You could feed 10 times as many people, generally speaking.
I can accept the argument that it's not an efficient use of resources.
Yeah, and it's bad for the environment,
There's probably, I'm not a vegetarian, I have cut back a little bit, or a fair amount, but I would say that if I were to make a case in favor of it, I would say there's probably, at least 4 factors. There's the environment, there's cost, there's health factors, and then there's just the treatment of the animals.
Jane Goodall, who studied chimps in Africa, and she's holding the hand of a chimp. and underneath it says, understanding is everything.
We're all kind of creatures of habit, and we kind of do what our parents did and what we see on TV and what other people talk about, but this show, I think, raises a lot of questions.
Does raise a lot of questions. I'm not sure that you've changed my mind about.
I'll give you some time.
Necessarily, yeah.
But it took time
curious.
for me.
Oh boy, now it's time for Progressive Perspectives, where we're going to talk about your right to arm bears. No, Barrington. Tonight we're going to talk about the arms race that America is having with herself.
It's Bob Lamb with the Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Right. Well, the Physicians for Social Responsibility initially formed back in 1961 when a group of doctors on the East Coast became alarmed about the medical consequences of nuclear weapons testing. Because if you combine all of the military budgets of the alleged threats to this country, namely Iran, Iraq, Libya, North Korea, Syria, and Cuba, their combined military budgets total approximately $15 billion. Now that's less than 6% of our that's less than 6% of our current federal budget, military budget of $263.5 billion. Because the Clinton administration based its military budget on the need to prepare to fight two major wars at the same time without the aid of our allies, and the Republicans love the scenario, but they say that there's not enough money in the Clinton budget to carry out the two-war scenario, or as we would call it, the two-war fantasy. If the issue is providing jobs, then let's rebuild the infrastructure of the United States. Let's rebuild the highways, the bridges, the railroads, the dams, the water supply system, the airports. And if we do that, according to a series of economic studies, we would employ 2 or 3 times as many people. The B-2 stealth bomber is worth its weight, 5 to 6 times its weight in gold. Now, Star Wars is based on the theory that some adversary would choose as a matter of national policy to commit suicide by attacking us with nuclear weapons.
I'm having a hard time objecting to anything that you're saying. My blood's boiling after hearing all this. I don't know how we can be letting this happen.
There was a government accountant who had tapped into the Pentagon's money pipe. They caught him because his neighbors turned him in. They thought he was a drug dealer because he was living so ostentatiously. Well, you have some of the largest corporations in America.
Name them by name.
Employing thousands of people.
Well, you have Grumming, Hughes Aircraft,
you have
Honeywell.
Sure, those Martin Lockheed.
Marietta. Dick Mitchell, who is chairman of the Labor Speakers Club and also a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW.
That's what I call a real labor movement, when you have spontaneous worker involvement. And we can have that in this country if we realize that the laws were made as much to control us as to protect us. I think that without labor unions in this country today, we'd have probably only 20% of students graduating from high school, and the rest would be in the job market. 12 and 14-year-old young adults who work 12 and 14-hour days. I have a bumper sticker that I really appreciate. It's called the Labor Movement, the folks who brought you the weekend.
A lot of people are saying, well, get government off my back, and you had said, well, please.
Put it back on my back, please. It's my protection. But if you're on the top end making the profit, you're probably not on that highway anyway. So I suppose you probably don't worry about it, right? I mean, that's what I think is happening. Maybe I shouldn't say put government back on my back. See, I guess I kind of look at government as being the halo over my head. Read the book by William Greeter, Who Will Tell the People? It's scary.
Okay.
Bartlett and Steele do a book, America, What Went Wrong. In the dailies here in Minnesota, if you want to find out about a worker issue, you look in the business section. And I guess that kind of, to me, says it all. We choose to run the article about the Simpson trial instead of the story about the high school graduates from Forest Lake who are going to march in Washington, D.C. The all volunteer army is pretty good, except that now you wonder if we aren't mercenaries, and maybe the downfall of the Roman Empire was based on the fact that they went to mercenaries.
It's M.J. Maines, who is on the steering committee. Why do they call it the New Party?
mainly so that people realize that we are trying to approach politics in a new way to get away from the two tired old parties that everybody's really pretty fed up with. And it's a temporary name.
Are there certain issues that are very important to your members?
Yeah, well, probably the best way to sum it up is our party slogan, which we now have on bumper stickers. It's a fair economy, a real democracy, a new party. Public subsidies, to put strings on those, to say, look, if we're going to give you our tax dollars, you have to give us something back, namely jobs that pay our citizens a living wage. Fusion was a really popular tactic for third parties during the populist era. What it would mean was that a third party would fuse its candidate. Instead of running its own independent candidate, would fuse with that candidate and cast its party votes for that candidate. And it was a way of demonstrating its power, its growing power at the polls without feeling like it had to be a spoiler. Populists in this state, for example, often fused with Democrats or Greenback or Farmers Alliance Party candidates.
Andy Dawkins, he wanted to run cross-endorsed, as I understand it, DFL
You
and
can
New
be
Party
cross-endorsed now. Anyone's allowed to take any endorsements they want. We actually wanted to put him on the ballot as a New Party candidate while he was going to be on the ballot as a DFL candidate. That's what's illegal.
Okay.
But he was willing to help us challenge the law. So he actually did take our nomination last year when he ran. It's under appeal right now, and so it's actually in the federal appeals court.
Sexual misconduct by Senator Bob Packwood. It was a close vote.
I mean, whether or not there should be a public hearing.
I think in general, we take sexual misconduct way too lightly. We need to be more serious in addressing, when people in positions of power take advantage.
Diane Steen-Hinderly talking about income disparity.
The middle income
this is the minimum wage right here. Is the minimum wage back in
the 54.
Okay.
And the middle income people were getting about 5,000. The upper income people were getting about 15,000.
Okay.
And that was a ratio of about 7.5 to 1. And those were our fervent anti-communist days. If you come to the 90s and think of it as the ideal 90s where everybody is keeping up with inflation, that the minimum wage would be bringing in about, getting close to 12,000.
Okay.
And the middle income people getting close to 30,000. But what did happen in the 90s was that the minimum wage, you get 8,500, which is missing almost a third. It just never materialized. Now, the top ratio is over 400 to 1.
Oh my
And
God.
back in the
Of the minimum
50s,
wage.
that was only about 7.5
It was
times
7.5
as
to
much
1.
as the minimum wage.
But I'd like to show it in a visual way that
what this 400 to 1 really looks like.
Yes, that if you go to the 150 to 1, I want to show where that is.
I think this is so amazing.
If you get to 412 to 1,
but it is obscene. And it might be funny, it might be okay if there wasn't so many problems in our country right now, so many people that are really struggling. And these guys, they're just making a ton of money.
A ton of money.
Money supply to the body politic is like blood supply to the body. I like Jim Hightower's term of them as the welfare kings in our society.
It's socially acceptable to pay yourself more money than you could possibly ever spend in a lifetime. I mean, why does a certain job only earn minimum wage and another job earns $1 million? It's because the person who earns the $1 million is in the position to decide what work is worth what money. And so, of course, they're going to decide that what they do is worth lots and lots of money, and what someone else who it's in their control to decide what that person is doing, they're going to pay them as little as possible. They're going to pay them as little as they can get away with paying.
Are they Christian?
I think there's sleight of hand going on. I think that the people in power are pushing the hot buttons of the religious people. As I saw this golden head of the bull market come spinning out of the screen, and I thought, that's it, the golden calf.